Hi guys, so I want to show you this video with Donald Trump responding to questions actually from Fox News Radio. Perhaps that's a little bit different from the TV show, but responding to tweets that he put out just last week about liberating different states, asking people to rise up against their governors, and his attempts to backtrack on that somewhat. So let's hear what he had to say.
A few moments ago, in regards to reopening the U.S. economy, you said, I want it to be safe. And that's a sentiment obviously shared by tens of millions of Americans.
I want it to be safe.
And it seems at odds, Mr. President, with the tweet that you had on Friday about liberating those three particular states, Virginia, Minnesota, and Michigan, because none of those states, Mr. President, have met the requirements that the Vice President and others on the task force have talked about in terms of reopening the economy. Do you see those two
Well, if you take Michigan, there were things in the Michigan that I don't think they were necessary or appropriate. Everyone knows that. I think the governor of Michigan, we're getting along very well, but I think the governor of Michigan probably knows that. I think she probably wished she didn't put some of them in. You can't buy paint, you can't buy seeds, you can't, I mean...
What? You can't buy seeds, you can't buy paint, but there are restrictions on things that there are necessities. You need to have necessities. You can't be having people going out buying, oh, okay, I think I'll do some gardening, so I'll go and buy some stuff for my garden. Or I think I'll do some painting because I have some spare time. The idea of the lockdown is to reduce movements of people. If you have people going back and forth all the time for non-essential things, it sort of defeats somewhat the purpose of a lockdown.
I mean, where did this stuff come from? No, we're going to be safe. We have to be safe. And we don't want to close anything. We're not going to be closing, but we're going to be doing it beautifully, systematically.
What are you talking about? We're not going to be closing. There are places that are under lockdown. I think what he's attempting to do is he's attempting to speak to his base here. He knows, or I hope he knows what reality is, but he knows that they operate on a different level of reality. They operate on an alternative reality. So he has to speak to them, but he has to operate within reality at the same time, which is a difficult thing to do.
We're working very well with the governors. I mean, I would say pretty much almost all of them. A couple of them, no matter what you do, you'll never satisfy them. You could find the cure tomorrow and they wouldn't be satisfied. They'd find...
Of course, this is directed at Andrew Cuomo, the governor of the state of New York, who has been very critical of Donald Trump. And of course, Donald Trump doesn't like people to be critical of him, so he responds in his only way possible, which is to start insulting them and to blame them for his mistakes.
Find a reason to complain. Wise guys. But for the most part, we're working very well.
Wise guys? He's acting like a mafia boss. Hey, you wise guy, you don't come to me and ask me for things that I don't want to give. He's playing the mafia boss here. You treat me well, and I'll give you something in return. You treat me like crap, and I'm not going to give you nothing.
With the governors, we have a great relationship with the governors. I can tell you, I've been on numerous calls with governors, and during those calls, I mean, without exception, they were friendly, and that's going back even a month.
Who cares a crap about whether they're friendly or not? What's the situation with this lockdown?
From today. So I think that we're going to do a terrific job. I think the governors are going to do a terrific job, and we're starting to open our country. And, as you know, I just spoke with Greg Abbott today from Texas. He's fantastic. He's a fantastic governor. And he's going to be opening up parts of Texas.
And they are going to open up parts of Texas, even though the numbers of new cases in Texas are increasing all the time. So if the numbers are increasing, why would you be deciding to open? I can understand if the numbers had been decreasing constantly over a period of time, and then you said, okay, the numbers have decreased dramatically, we're almost at 0 new cases, and now we'll decide to open gradually. I don't think it would be a good idea. I don't agree with it, but I can somewhat understand it. But instead, what is Texas doing? The numbers are increasing in Texas, and they're going to open up their economy again.
And you're going to be opening up parts of other countries, you know what they, other states, and you know what that is. And by the way, other countries are at a point where they're starting. I see where Germany's starting to open up a little section. So there are a lot.
There's a big bloody difference between what's happening in the United States and what's happening in Germany. Germany has been testing constantly. They have been tracing cases. You haven't been doing that. So don't compare yourself with Germany or compare certain states with Germany.
A lot of great things happening, and we're going to start to open our country. And we're going to do it, it's like, as I say, it's like a beautiful puzzle. The state might even be a portion of a state. You know, there.
What is he talking about? A puzzle? Does he not understand that they're not islands? Most of the states are connected to other states. I think maybe Alaska and Hawaii are probably the exceptions. Maybe there's another one I'm missing. But of course, Alaska shares a border with Canada. But in response to this idea that they're like pieces on a jigsaw puzzle, where is he going with this? But once again, they're not islands. They're connected to each other. So if you have a lockdown in one state and you don't have a lockdown in another state, and you don't have border controls, because you don't have border controls between each of the states, there aren't police checking people coming in and out, checking their temperatures, checking their documentation, going from one state to the other. This isn't taking place. So what's to stop someone who's infected in one state moving into another state, or someone who's moving from a place that isn't locked down into a place that is locked down, or vice versa? It's pointless having one state locked down and another not locked down. But I want to talk a little bit more about this whole lockdown, because I think a lot of people don't understand why there is a lockdown. The lockdown is necessary to defend the healthcare system. If we don't defend the healthcare system, what will happen is it will collapse. And then you will not be able to get into hospital for any reason. You know, if under an emergency situation, we have closed pretty much the hospital to non-COVID-19 cases. But of course, there are emergencies. You know, if there's a fire or there's a car accident or whatever, somebody will still go to the hospital. But that's because the hospital is able to cope with that. But when the hospital can't cope because you have thousands of new cases every day, these people will go to the hospital. The hospitals will be overrun. The system will collapse, and then it won't be able to take people. It won't be able to take in people who have other illnesses or injuries or whatever. That's why we need a lockdown. We need to limit the numbers of people who are going into hospital for non-COVID-19 issues. We need to protect the system from collapsing. If you take away the lockdown, the numbers of cases will increase. We've seen that. We've seen it in many countries around the world. But Donald Trump doesn't want to do that. Why? Because it's bad for business. I don't know if it's him personally who's losing a lot of money, or it's his friends, his supporters, his donors who want their businesses to reopen because they're losing cash. Every day that they stay closed, they're losing money. And they don't care about their employees. They don't care about their customers or their suppliers. They just want to open. It's completely driven from an economic point of view. It's not driven by a health point of view or a health perspective. Trump's attempt to to protect his healthcare systems and then turn around and say, okay, we need to reopen, and encouraging members of the public to protest, making references to the Second Amendment even, in order to facilitate that protest, are dangerous, extremely dangerous. And what it does is it ups the ante against governors who are trying to do the right thing. And unfortunately, doing the right thing comes into conflict with the president. And a reasonable president would allow the governors to do their job and would provide support for them. A real leader would do that. A real leader would say to these people, these governors and officials, whatever you need, I will try and get it for you. But Donald Trump is running in the opposite direction. He's telling one governor one thing one day, and then he's telling another governor another thing. He's helping governors politically who are on his side, and he's attempting to undermine governors who are not on his side. And it's extremely dangerous, and what it's going to do is it's going to completely hamper any attempt to control the virus in the US. We can only hope for the best, but people need to prepare for the worst, as they say. Let me know in the comments, guys. As always, much appreciated. Thanks.